In every season of transition, there are some things that come to the surface that causes you to remain stagnated and almost procrastinate. The things that come to the surface are all wrapped around one big thing, and that big thing is fear. Hi, my name is Dr. Monique Flemings. I am affectionately called the Transitions Doctor. Come and sit with me for a few minutes as I take some time to share nuggets, wisdom, and insight on how you can begin to learn how significant it is for you to crush your fears. Yes, we're going to talk about crushing your fears so that you can be able to move forward, soar, grow, thrive, and to walk out everything that you have been destined to do in life. Allow me to share my story. Many years ago, while I was in my home, I had an encounter with a very large bug. Yes, a very large bug. It was a huge centipede, truly over the size of a ruler in my home. And when I saw this bug, I became paralyzed with fear to the point that I got on the phone, I called my parents, and I was gripped with fear. Both of my parents answered the phone, and my father said, okay, sure, we'll come out there. My mother said, yes, we'll be there right away. And my parents drove from their home to my home, which was a 45-minute drive for them to get to me. Well, as I'm waiting for my parents to come, I am so gripped with fear. I am having a panic attack that I actually get in my car, I leave my home, and I go and I sit in the parking lot of a grocery store waiting on my parents. That's just how powerful my fear was of this bug. Well, 45 minutes later, my parents come back to my home with me. And yes, of course, you know, the centipede was gone. But nevertheless, I stood there, an adult, a grown woman, crying, having a panic attack, having a meltdown because I was fearful of bugs. I was so afraid that I was not even able to logically even think. I was not able to rationalize that I was bigger than this bug because in my brain, in my thought process, this bug was huge and this bug had power over me. I share this story because this story lets me know how powerful fear can become in our lives. And I had no clue that I had been living with a subtle layer of fear, and it had grew and grew and grew. And truly, my fear was just as large as that centipede. It was particularly at that time that I came to grips and began to realize that this is not normal. People just don't have these issues with bugs to the point that they will leave their home, have a meltdown, almost go into a panic attack. But I want you to know that my story with fear of bugs didn't start there. As a young girl, I was afraid of bugs. As a young teenager, I was afraid of other things. And so it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew to the point where I had all of these fears. Now I'm telling you a story about a bug, and you're probably thinking, what does that have to do with life? But I want you to understand that these fears in my life has spilled over into every arena in my life. I was afraid of having relationships with people. I was afraid of even just trusting my God ordained purpose. I was afraid to live. And so I have an acronym, which is crushing, because when I was subdued to this fear was crushing me. It was crushing who I was. It was not allowing me to breathe. It was not allowing me to soar. It was not allowing me to be anything that God had created me to be. So my acronym for crushing is the C stands for cautious. This fear was causing me to be cautious, meaning that I put up walls so that nobody could get in. And guess what? I couldn't get out. I was very play it safe. I didn't trust people. and I didn't trust myself. I was very, very cautious. I remained in toxic relationships because I really didn't know who I was. Now, this is how I define toxic relationships. A toxic relationship is any relationship that does not celebrate you and who you are in your true, authentic self. That's any relationship. It could be a sisterhood, a friendship, any relationship that does not celebrate who you are in your true, authentic self is a toxic relationship. And so, because I did not have the self esteem, I did not understand, I would remain in toxic relationships. And these toxic relationships were not good. I was trying to fit in, I was trying to be accepted, I was being crushed. You I was unstable in my relationship with God because I did not have an understanding of how He really saw me and how He really viewed me as a daughter and how much He loved me. I felt like He was angry at me because I was always doing something wrong. I had a very strange, unstable relationship with who God was and who He called me to be and how He fashioned me to be in this world. Unstable. And that unstable relationship was caused by fear. S, self sabotage. Yeah, I could self sabotage myself. I could talk myself out of everything. I would second guess a promotion, second guess a friendship, second guess everything that came into my life, self sabotaging. And the root of that self sabotaging behavior, you guessed it, fear. H, yeah, H. I had harassing mental thoughts about how I was not going to do well. My own thought process would harass myself, and I would play these tapes over and over and over again about how I was not going to be successful. Mm-hmm. I, I. I had insecurities in my identity, insecurities in my identity. Once again, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know that I was the apple of God's eye. I did not know that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. I thought I wasn't worthy. I felt like I was a failure. I had no identity and I had insecurities in my identity. In, I never saw myself as winning. So I never saw myself as a winner. Always saw myself as not being able to be number one, to win or succeed. And then G, I was guaranteed to repeat this cycle over and over again in my life because this crushing fear was crushing me. It was causing me not to walk out my God-given right. My authenticity was being crushed. My creativity was being crushed. Everything about me was being crushed under this fear. And I had to get to the point where I needed to live. I needed to breathe. I needed to survive. I needed to be all that He had created me to be. So how do you do that? How do you take this crushing fear that was crushing me and actually now begin to crush fear? This is what I teach in my courses and with my clients, that it really boils down to a couple simple principles, and I'll share one with you on today. The biggest principle that I had to come to grips with was really just walking in my authenticity, being comfortable in my skin, being happy with how He created me, being comfortable with who I was, and recognizing that yes, I would make mistakes and I could grow from those mistakes, that it was okay to not be able to succeed at everything because I was going to learn and grow. And the greatest thing was I was going to walk out what God had called me to do unapologetically. And it took me some time. But when I got there, sweetheart, when I got there, I knew I was there. When I got my rhythm, I was able to hold my head high. I was able to walk out my God-given purpose because I knew now that that fear that was crushing me, I now had the power to crush it. I now had the power to soar in my relationships, to soar in my business, to soar in any area that I decided to put my hands to. I knew that I could now be a winner. And that was all because I began to recognize and begin to realize that I am the apple of his eye, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that I was born with a purpose. I was not a mistake, that I have authority over this fear. Yes, I have authority over that fear that had grew in me and grew up and was just as large as that centipede. Yeah, yeah. I had authority over my past. I had authority over what people said. I had authority over what hurt me, what crushed me, what tried to stop me. I had authority over it. And once I realized that I had authority over it, the bugs got to the point where they did not bother me anymore. I did not run from bugs because I had authority over bugs. And I use this story to share with you because you may think, oh, I'm not really afraid of bugs. That was my thing. But my bug story is really a story about just how my fears had grew and grew and grew to the point where they were just out of control. My challenge for you today is, what are you afraid of? What's stopping you? What's causing you to procrastinate? What's causing you to stop and to think that you have to have it all together before you step out there and do it? Could it be fear? Could it be fear that's crushing you? Could it be fear that's causing you to be stagnant, or fear that's causing you to procrastinate, or fear that's causing you to be a perfectionist, making you think you got to have all the steps together? I promise you, when you start crushing fear, when you start taking authority over fear, you can live a life that allows you to celebrate your failures so that even when you don't hit the mark, you have still hit the mark. Even when you feel like you have not succeeded, you have still been successful. And that was a mentality shift that I had to take. So I wanted to encourage you on today that you are more than enough to start crushing your fears. My name is Dr. Monique Flemings. Connect with me at moniqueflemings.net. I would love to walk you through my Crushing Fear program, because you are enough to crush your fear, to soar, to win, to be everything that God has created you to be.